Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our presentation of the 40-Hour WorkYear. My name is Michael Mills. I'm one of the founders of Business Design Corporation, and I'm proud to present to you Scott Fritz. Scott is the author of the 40-Hour WorkYear, his personal entrepreneurial journey that allowed him to achieve a 40-hour work year and become a passive investor in his own company. One of the ways we characterize business freedom and the quest of the entrepreneur is metaphorically called calling in for the numbers from the British Virgin Islands. Many of you on the call today will have heard me say this before, and Scott has actually achieved this very much sought-after objective. In addition to being an author and a serial entrepreneur, Scott is also a coach, an angel investor, and of course a speaker. He speaks at conferences, at EO and YPO and Vistage forum meetings, and to business owners all around the world. In fact, Scott has facilitated over 250 EO strategic sessions since 2005. Scott is an EO certified accelerator facilitator. In his coaching work, his focus is on entrepreneurial strategy, sales, leadership, people, and finance. I will be moderating today's presentation. If you have a comment or a question, please type it into the chat box on the GoToWebinar control panel. Today's presentation should last approximately 45 minutes, so if we have some time at the end, we will take some questions. So thank you, Scott. Thank you for being with us today and sharing with us some of your strategic business methods, your business exercises, and your philosophical mindset for the entrepreneur.
Comment about the top here, the header. I highly recommend you read Think and Grow Rich if you have not. It was a very instructional book for me and helped me accomplish a lot of things in my life. So if you've not read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, written in 1937, I tell people about 80% of what's in that book is still being used today by business coaches and entrepreneurs around the world. So I'm going to get right into it. I started my company, Human Capital was the name of it, in 1997. I tell people every time I put this date up, I feel a little older, unfortunately, but that's when we started our company. We spent about 8 months creating our business plan to launch our PEO. So we had a professional employer organization, which is basically an outsourcing service company for payroll, human resources, benefits, and things like that. Took out a small business loan from the SBA, my business partner and myself. Her name was Karen, 50-50 percentage owners in the company. Personally guaranteed it, et cetera, and as I say in the book, if you've ever taken an SBA loan, good luck with that. It was not a good experience for me. I've heard they have gotten better on the loan side, but I'm not sure how smooth that is. And when I think back about this, I'm saying, well, I'm putting a bank and the government together. I don't know why I expected it to go very smoothly. Maybe I sprinkle a little post office on top. It would have made it even more enjoyable. So we had a $150,000 loan to get the business going. We opened in September of 1997, and we had about a 10-month window to make a break. So we had a pro forma set up with a runway of about 10 months, and our goal was to obviously get to the positive cash flow side of the business before we ran off the runway. Fortunately for us, we signed our first big client after 4 months, which was about a $3 million account, and we were cash flow positive after 6 months. If that hadn't happened, I would not be talking to you today. Paid off the SBA loan at the end of 1998, which the bank doesn't really like. They don't like you paying the loan early, but I didn't like them being on my back, and I've never been a big debt guy to begin with. So we paid them off in 98. Did about $8.5 million in sales by the end of 98, so our first full year in business. However, I did not receive any pay out of the company until 99, so everything we were making, so to speak, was going back into the business. My wife was a manager at the Gap. She was cranking in about 40 grand at the time and had a little bit of savings. So for about 2.5 years, we lived definitely very thin from the standpoint of expenses, but that was a great experience for me. As I go through the rest of this presentation today, I'm going to keep referring back to what I call my focus filter. And so this is a mindset philosophy that helped me guide to get to the 40-hour work year, and I still use it today. So this has not changed the order as of from 2004 to 2014. So for 10 years, I've been living under this focus filter. It's pretty straightforward. Concept is, number one, enjoy life. And what this means from a standpoint of a business view is a transition from working on my business to the role of passive investor and advisory board member, which is where I'm still at today. Second is make money. So I'm going to enjoy life, that's great, but second thing I want to make sure is that I'm making money. And in a business setting, this means position my company to run as a self-sufficient profit machine, capable of growing through utilizing its own management team and systems. And that's why Michael and I believe are in such great alignment. Is I'm a huge process and systems guy, and as you all know, so is Michael and his company. And then finally, do deals. So this means being an acquisition-focused business, ready to begin acquiring other companies, and prepared to create an investor exit for maximum return. Obviously, probably a lot of you on the phone are do deals junkies. I was myself. But ultimately, if you're not going to enjoy life and make money, all the deals in the world don't really matter. So let's talk about where I was in 97, 99. I now kind of refer to these as the dark ages for me. A lot of mornings standing in the shower, staring at the wall, wondering what the heck I'd done because it wasn't going real well. It was going okay, but I was not making a lot of money and I was not enjoying life. I was doing it every day. Unfortunately, I had not learned how to get out of my own way and how to own a business, not just a job. I was really in a mom and pop business, what I consider a mom and pop business. And in my own experience with entrepreneurs and owning companies, about 85% of the companies in the U.S., I believe, are mom and pop businesses. They're your corner dry cleaner, gas station, et cetera. Really, they don't have any systems and processes, or very few, and they kind of just, wing it and hope that at the end of the month there's some money for them. My filter at this point was do deals, make money, enjoy life. So I was doing tons of deals. I wasn't really making much money, and enjoy life wasn't even a thought at this point. Spent about 90 hours a week working in my business, which was not a great place to be, but I kind of had to be the guy doing it. 50 hours a week FaceTime at the office. Here's the problem with this. I was the sales and so-called marketing side of the company. My business partner was the operations and HR side. And if I'm 50 hours of the week at the office, and I'm selling a service to business owners, it didn't give me that much time to go out and sell, or enough time to sell. So it was not a great place to be from that standpoint. But I was focused. Focused like a laser, not always on the right things, but I was focused. So I came to call this my mirror moment. It was December 1999, and I had 18 closing appointments in 1 week. If anyone on the phone, I know Michael knows how this works, selling services to business owners, if you have 18 closing appointments in a week, that is phenomenal. In my world, if you have 5 or 6, you're doing a really good job. But here I was, I had to be the guy making all the sales. About 18 closing appointments in 1 week. So Thursday after around noon, lunchtime, I pulled my car into a local fast food joint to grab something to eat. And as I parked the car and turned off the car, I started shaking uncontrollably. My whole body was shaking. I looked in the mirror. I was pasty white, sweating like crazy. My company was in Michigan, so it was about 30 degrees out. There's no reason I should have been sweating and shaking like that. Rolled the windows down. I don't really know if I passed out or not. I think I probably did. Laid there for about 20 minutes and finally got myself together. Went in and got something to eat, thinking, oh, just low blood sugar. I just need to get something in the stomach. But I really never felt that great the rest of the day. I went on with the day, and driving home that night, I'd realized that I'd had a panic attack, an anxiety attack, a mini nervous breakdown or something. And I basically vowed at that point that I'm going to go hire some salespeople. I can't keep going like this. My second daughter just been born at this point, and you have all the money in the world, but if you're not around to enjoy it with your kids, I don't think it really matters. So I hired 2 salespeople the following week, hired 2 more the next month, and never looked back. Fortunately for me, I've not had another mirror moment. I've not had a major physical manifestation of the stress and overworking, and thank God I haven't. So really, what this takeaway here was for me that I had tons of passion. I'm still very passionate about what I do. I had a lot of focus, but I had not built a team. And if you're going to scale a business at this speed and at this level, you've got to build a team. And again, unfortunately, and I'm sure most of you on the call realize this, that only about 80% of the entrepreneurs I meet actually have the passion for their business. And the way I define that is, you're saying TGI Monday, not TGI Friday. You can't wait for the weekend to get over if you're in a business that operates Monday through Friday, because you want to get back to your passionate love, which is your company. The scary part here, though, is about 20% of the entrepreneurs I work with and meet are truly focused. So part of being an entrepreneur, and I agree with this, I have my own battles here, is that we have what I call shiny penny syndrome, which isn't a bad thing. It's what keeps us challenged and moving forward and coming up with great ideas. But if you truly want to scale a business to where you never have to work in it or on it again, you've got to be focused. And lastly, team. This is the #1 reason, I see it over and over again, why entrepreneurs do not ever reach their goals or their dreams. They don't build a team. About 5%, and that's probably being generous, of the companies that I know of and working with, actually built a team. And what is a team? A team is what I was able to do. A team is being able to move 2,000 miles across the country and not visit the office at all other than once a year. And that's basically the 40-hour work year. So a team that can meet all the goals and aspirations that you're setting out to grow your business, and they do it without you. So for the last 4 years of my business, basically when I was living the 40-hour work year, we had a team of 5 executives and then a CEO overseeing those 5 executives. Karen and myself took the role of founders in the company, and we met once a year for a strategic retreat, which was never in Michigan. It was always away from the office. And then I visited the office 1 time a year. And so that's the team I'm talking about here. So this is the, if you have a piece of paper or a pen handy, you can go through this exercise with me here. I call this the ownership paradox, because a lot of owners think that they have to be very involved in their business, almost to an over-controlling or dominating presence in their business for it to be successful, which, again, in my experience of my company, nothing could be further from the truth. So if you draw an arrow starting in the upper left-hand corner down to the right-hand corner of the page, and then draw an intersecting arrow from the bottom left-hand corner to the upper right into the page. That's the whole artistic portion of this exercise. The top left-hand corner would be owner in the business 100%. So if you're in the business, if you own a job and you have to be there doing work in the business daily, weekly, you would be at that far end of that arrow. The far right end of the upper arrow is your company value. So imagine your company value being maximized, whatever number that is. And it can change over time, but for today's sake, whatever that number is. The bottom left hand of the upper arrow going up to the right, is your company value at 0, or for some of you, if you paid off all your debt, maybe negative. Your company may be actually in the red. And the bottom right hand of the arrow is owner in the business 0. I want to be clear about this. This is not owner on the business 0. This is in the business. This is where, as I say, you've actually hired somebody that's doing your job. So if you've hired somebody that does your job and you're not in the business at all, you may still be there working on the business strategically, expansion, those sort of things. But you're not in there doing a daily role in the company, you're at 0%. So if you would, if you'd circle on the arrow that goes from the upper left down to the bottom right, circle where you're at on that arrow. So for example, if I'm in the business 75%, I'm in the business 75%, I would draw the circle there. Okay? Then you just draw a line, intersecting line, and draw a circle on the up arrow. That, in the simplest, straightforward way, is the value of your company. So in this scenario, if I thought my company was worth $1 million, if I'm in the business 0, it's now worth about 250 because I'm in the business 75% of the time. There are obviously a lot of other ways that your company would be valued, but I will tell you, as an angel investor, done 27 deals in 14 years, this is a first step for me looking at any company. How in the business is the owner? Am I going to rely on the business owner to make sure that I get my return out of the company? And the less you're in it, the more valuable price tag you will have on your company. When we went to sell our company in '07, Karen and myself had not been in or honestly on the business at all for 4 years. That gave us huge leverage in the negotiation and made us the shiniest star from the standpoint of the other companies that we were going against for purchase. So out of the dark ages, this is 1999 to 2004. This is really starting to move my business into a place where what I'd consider a small business, which is about 10% of the companies in the U.S., with the mom and pop being about 85%, we're now moving into a small business mentality. I was coaching others to do it. I wasn't doing it all myself. And I was now make money, do deals, enjoy life when it comes to my filter. Enjoy life was still third, but we were not doing any deals that did not make us money. It didn't matter to me who the client was, who they knew, their connections, any of that. If we were not going to make our acceptable margin on the clients, we did not do the deal. I was now working 40 hours a week on my business. So I was not in my business at this time. I'd hired people to do that. And I was now 50 hours a month FaceTime at the office. I moved to Las Vegas in 2002, so part of this transition phase is during that time, about halfway through. But during the time I was still in Michigan, about 50 hours a month at the office. And the word was now leader. I was still focused, but I've become a leader in my company. I was leading others, showing them how they could improve their skill sets and move the company forward without me. So the big question was April 2001. Some of you may be on the call here from the Midwest, but I think you recognize this, or maybe from Canada from the cold standpoint. It was April 2001, and I was down in the basement working on some things for the business. My wife came downstairs and said, my wife's name is Jennifer. She said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, okay. She said, I want to move. We've lived here 6 years. She said we'd lived here 5 to 7 years. We've been here 6. I'd like to move. I'm thinking, oh boy, what happened? Something going on with the kids or the neighbors or something weird going on. I said, okay, that's fine. Why do you want to move? And she took my head and pointed it up to the transom window up there that had in the basement, so I could see the snow coming down outside. She said, it's April, it's April and it's almost Easter and it's snowing. I'm tired of this. I want to be somewhere sunny. I don't care where. Somewhere, though, that on Easter we can do an outdoor Easter egg hunt. So I said, okay, I got it. That's cool. It's fine with me, actually. We didn't have any family in Michigan. We weren't from there. Let's move. But there was one issue, obviously, that I had to cover, which was telling my business partner. So my business partner knew we were not going to live in Michigan forever, but we hadn't really discussed recently how soon I'd be moving. So I called Karen up. I said, Karen, I'd like to meet with you on Monday. I've got something I'd like to talk about. So we showed up there at the local coffee shop. Started talking to her. I said, I'm just going to come to the point here. Talk to Jennifer this weekend, and we decided we're going to move. Not really sure where, but somewhere sunny. Probably somewhere with no income tax. That's another reason I live in Nevada. And we've decided probably about a year is when we'd like to do this. So I'm not going to move tomorrow, but by the time I sell this house, build or buy another one, and move where I want to move, about a year. I said, okay, well, how are we going to do this? I said, well, there's 3 options. Fortunately for us, we had a very strong buy-sell agreement in our company, which I highly recommend if you have partners in your business that you get a strong buy-sell. Number 1, you can buy me out. That was all laid out. It was pretty straightforward. Number 2, we can sell the company and we both go our merry ways. Or number 3, I've been thinking about this weekend, and I think we could build this company to run without us so that we literally don't have to work anymore. So we talked for a little while and said, well, I don't really want to buy you out. I don't really want to sell. I think there's still a lot of potential. So how would this thing where we don't work anymore, how does that look? I said, well, when I move to somewhere sunny, although I still would be involved in the business to some degree, I don't plan on flying back here every week to work. So it needs to be something where the business could run totally without us. So the question I came to was, how much of an annual pay cut am I willing to take to never have to work again? And when I say pay cut, I mean total pay. So that's pay, distributions, perks, everything that we were currently getting out of the company. Karen said, I don't know. What's your number? I said, well, I have a number, but I'd like you to go home and talk to your husband first, and let's meet back here tomorrow and see if we're close. Because if we're not close on the number, then we're going to probably have to go to one of the other options. So she went home, came back the next morning, sat down. I gave her a piece of paper, told her to write down her number of how much of a pay cut she'd take. I wrote my number down, folded it up, slid it across the table. It was identical. We had both put down the same amount of money that we were currently willing to not take out of the company any longer, to never have to work again. So from a standpoint of thinking about your business, this was major, major mindset shift for both of us. Because it isn't how much of a pay cut would you take to do this or that for the company, or to add this new service or buy a building or build out the software. It's the number that you would be willing to let go to never have to work again. So the question for you on the call is, if you have a number, that's great, write it down. If it's a percentage, that's great, write it down. If it's zero or you can't do this right now, that's fine, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be asking yourself this question as often as it takes until there is a number. But for everybody on the call, you can answer this question. What are 3 current job duties I need to relinquish in the next 6 months? Again, speaking from experience, I was probably at the early stages, there were 30 to 40 job duties I needed to relinquish. So just think of 3 that you currently need to relinquish in the next 6 months. And then to put some real meat on the bone, of those 3 current job duties, how much money would it cost the company on a monthly basis to hire someone to perform these job duties? So I'll give you a few seconds here to think about this and write down the 3 job duties and how much would that truly cost your company monthly to remove those from your plate. Okay. Hopefully you came up with some ideas here, and I always like to say, you know, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So if you've got 3, that's great. There's probably a lot more, but pick the 3 you really need to move off of. Just did this presentation, did it a couple times last week and the week before, and had a gentleman come up to me at the break and say, you know, I've been talking to my business partner about this. I just texted him. I'm going to pull $5 grand a month out of what I currently pay myself, and I'm hiring that person to take over the sales role in the company that I've been putting off for way too long. So it's great when I hear that, because that's the true breakthroughs that I look for when I work with entrepreneurs. Start somewhere. I don't care if it's $500 a month or $50,000 a month. Start moving yourself out of the roles that you should not be doing. An easy way to think about this is whatever your hourly rate is, or what you think your hourly rate should be, any job duties that are not paying you that number should be outsourced, or you should be hiring somebody to do those job duties. So, transition. So really the rest of my talk is going to be pinpointed on the transition phase of how I transition myself and my business partner out of the company over about an 18-month period. So these are some basic rules that I learned along the way. To implement the big question, which is how much of a pay cut am I willing to take to never have to work again, you must have a transition plan. Plan your work, work your plan. You know, failing to plan is planning to fail. All those sayings are there because they're true. You must sit down and create a transition plan. To implement that plan, you must have the right people, and especially a key leader. Fortunately for us, the person that ended up being our CEO, his name is Seth. He was the director of operations, and we moved him into the CEO role eventually in the company. He was our key leader of the business. And to get the right people, you must have the right attitude. And the right attitude is, quite honestly, the problem that most people run into as entrepreneurs. They're not always willing to do these things. Number one, willing to let go of everything day to day. Everything is capitalized for a reason. You've got to be willing to let go of everything day to day so that the people that you hire can do that work. Willing to hire or train the new CEO. Again, I see this a lot. Entrepreneurs, you know, we have a little bit of an ego, obviously, but if you're not willing to train or hire that new CEO to take your role, I don't believe it's possible to live the 40-hour work year. You're going to get pulled back into day-to-day things and decisions that, honestly, you shouldn't be making. And then finally, willing to agree to pay what you agreed to pay. So if Karen and I had gone to the company and said, hey, we're going to make this plan. We're both taking some rather large cuts in our compensation. And then 2 months into the plan, I said, oh, you know what? We're changing our mind. We're going to start taking money out of the company again. that would have totally demoralized the company and totally killed the idea of us transitioning out of the business. I'm going to go through these, not in major detail. Obviously, they're in pretty good detail in the book. If you're interested in getting that and reading through these. We're going to talk about standard operating procedures, which again is right in alignment with, I believe, why you're on this call with Business Design Corp. I'm going to talk about a system I created called a decision matrix, my decision filter, my people plan, forecasting, letting go, having that final epiphany to let go of things as an entrepreneur, some tracking metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, and then building owner wealth and company value at the same time. And that is a key item here. Do not leave extra money in your company. I'm not saying starve your company, but be sure you're building your own wealth along with the company value. So heaven forbid if a 9/11 event or a terrible downturn in the economy happens, you're not having to go back to work for the man or borrow money or go in debt. Another quote here by Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich, your achievement can be no greater than your plans are sound. Let's talk about SOPs. Michael's getting all excited on this one. So completed by department and position. So one of the things that I see a lot out there with businesses is I'll go and I'll say, well, tell me about your standard operating procedures. Tell me about your systems. They go, oh, we're pretty good. Sally's in charge of this, and Bill does this, and Brenda does this, and Mike does that. And, that's a fatal flaw when it comes to your SOPs, because what these companies have done is they've created what I call golden child syndrome. They have basically given the reins and all the knowledge, intellectual capital of this business to these people. And they could be the best people in the world, but, life happens. They might quit. Something might happen personally with them. And now all that knowledge and all that learning goes with them. Every employee involved in the process and process for those in Canada. So I'll get that in there for you. Every employee involved in the process. I don't believe you should create systems or SOPs, and we did not in our business. Just create them in a bubble and then lay them out there for the employees. If you're creating SOPs for the first time in your company, to really get that ownership and that buy-in, and not to mention the best practices of your company, you want to have every employee involved in the process. And of course, as I tell all my clients, and when I do this talk, the best system I have found out there, and I have all my clients, I refer them to this, and every time I speak, I refer them to this, is the Touchstone product. I've seen a lot of different products out there. Unfortunately, this wasn't around back when I was creating my SOPs in the early 2000s, but highly recommend the Touchstone product. It must be armed. So some of you may have heard of SMART goals. So my little joke on this is I'd rather be armed than smart. So armed goals or armed SOPs, actionable, realistic, measurable, and dated. Starts at the hiring process or process, search, screening, and selection. So again, this is something I see quite often, companies who actually have pretty decent SOPs and systems, but they're not using a standardized process for the hiring. If you're out hiring people who are not hired through an SOP or systematized process, you're going to necessarily, just because you're not doing that, get some people in your company that are not SOP-minded people. So you want to start at the very beginning. You want to create SOPs around the very onboarding, hiring, screening, and selection process. Tied to reviews and evaluations for feedback and alignment throughout the company. So you've got your SOPs in place. That's great. You got your systems. When you're holding your reviews for your employees, make sure that you're covering how well they're doing following SOPs. Have they been able to tweak some of the areas? Are they giving input and valuable feedback for you to make your SOP stronger? And then evaluate them twice a year. Now, if you're a smaller company just getting started, you may be evaluating these monthly or quarterly until you really get them tweaked, but don't mess with them too much. I have a client that, they're big. I mean, they manage over $5 billion in assets. The owner loves to go in and mess with the SOPs to the point where they could train 10 people 1 week, and then next week they have to retrain them because she's messed with the SOPs again. So I recommend you evaluate them twice a year. So we'd evaluate them, midsummer, June, July, and then evaluate them year end. And if you think about using an action monitor, modify rhythm, what I mean by this is the entrepreneur takes the action, the system monitors the action and the SOPs, and then the team modifies. So again, keep yourself out of this, once you have your SOPs in place, have your team do the modification, all right? Because in most entrepreneurial, small, privately held companies, most people will do whatever the entrepreneur tells them to. Well, that's fine, but that's not an SOP-based culture. And finally, very importantly, you got to make sure you're messaging these to your clients, vendors, and prospects. Now, we were out banging heads with, ADP, Paychex, Ceridian, huge publicly traded companies. The way we competed and got clients from them is that we let our prospects know that, hey, we're an SOP-based company. Here's our systems. Here's our processes. You can get the personal touch by using a smaller company like ours and still have the peace of mind and protection of an SOP-based company. So decision matrix. This one tool I'm going to show you here, I have several clients who used to be clients, they're not anymore because they're already living the 40-hour work here, who use this one tool out of the book and did nothing else. So let me show you this. And again, I think this will be a great takeaway for a lot of you on the call. So we developed this in early 2001. And in 2001, Karen and myself were involved in about 27, 28, somewhere around there, of the key 48 decisions the company had to make on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. By the end of 2003, we only had 7 boxes checked. So we had transitioned ourselves out of close to 20 plus key decisions and sign-offs on the company. And here's a sample of what the grid looked like. The full grid is available in the book. This is actually my grid from my company that we use. So here's some examples. Changes in benefit plans, changes in 401k, bonus plans, approving purchases. Obviously, as you can see, here's 4 of the 7 we were involved in. Changes in the 401k, and we started to be involved in that. We were fiduciaries for the plan. Bonus plans, obviously, we had sign off on that. Obviously, any business acquisitions, approving any settlements from litigation, things like that. This gives you a snapshot of the decision matrix we use in our company. This is an excellent tool for developing leaders in your company and for making sure that you're transitioning out of the non-core areas of your business. So decision filter. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this was a key way that we made our decisions in our company, especially in strategic planning sessions. So number one is the company. Okay, so it's got to start with the company. Because if there's no company, there's not really anything to talk about. And the simple question is this when you're looking at a decision for your company. Will this increase the value of the company, and is it in alignment with our mission, vision, and top 5 priorities for the year? Now, something I meant to say is you always want to filter through your values first. So if you filter your decisions through your values first, then you turn to the decision filter. So if you on the call do not have mission, vision, values developed, please get those developed for your company. Much easier to do it when you're early on and before you start scaling. And then annually, you should be creating the top 5 priorities for the year. So these are the top 5 priorities that you as a company are going to go after. Second, owners. Will this increase owner wealth without increasing business or personal risk beyond our tolerance? Too many stories here of things I got into that were way beyond my risk and business tolerance. So everybody has a certain level of risk that they're willing to take on. Highly recommend that you figure out what that is for yourself and your business, and do not go after things or pursue opportunities that are not within your risk tolerance. And then finally is employees, and the reason it's final is because if there's no company, there's no owners, there won't be any employees. But what this means is, from a decision filter standpoint, is ask yourself when you're looking at a new project or service or a strategic alliance, et cetera, you may be taking on, do we have the team, talent, and budget to pay our employees to execute on this decision, and do they have the right mindset? And what is the right mindset? The right mindset is, are they in alignment with your mission, vision, and values? So we go full circle here back to number 1. Much easier, again, back to the search screen and selection phase of hiring, much easier to keep the non-mindset fit people out than to remove them from your company. For those of you who have many employees or been in business for a while on the call, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So people principles, these are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Number 1, friendly, not friends. We actually had an anti-nepotism policy in our company, so we could not hire any family. Neither Karen nor I could, which made things much easier as we grew our company. But, from a standpoint of friendly, not friends, I'm not saying don't be friendly to your employees. I'm just saying keep it professional, keep it in the business. I could almost guarantee you, as you scale your company, you're going to outgrow several people, and if they're friends in your company, it's going to be very difficult to let them go. In control, not controlling. Without SOPs, without standard operating procedures, this is impossible. You are going to have to be a controlling person if you have not set up your systems for your people to follow. All right? Delegating, not dumping, same thing. If you don't have SOPs in place, you've not built systems, you are dumping on people because you can't have a training system if you don't have your SOPs in place. So you want to be able to delegate, not dump. And then finally, and I say this in the book, firm but fair. If you do the top three, you will be viewed as a firm but fair entrepreneur and boss, which was the ultimate goal that I had in my company. So forecasting. I was a sales guy, so I was very optimistic, as most salespeople are. I'd go to my business partner and I'd say, Karen, next month's going to be great. We're going to close $2 million in new business. And she'd always say to me, is that the real number or is that sales math? So what I mean here is if you're a salesperson or you have a sales team, salespeople or anything, they're optimistic, which they have to be because they get told no, dozens of times a day. They're out there selling to people on a regular basis. So my sales math, what I'm talking about here is, this is a factor that I'd created to know what our sales budget should be for the following year, our forecast. So I take all my sales numbers from my team, let's just say it was $10 million for the year, and I applied a factor of 0.7. So I take the $10 million, times it by 70%, and we create a forecast and budget off $7 million. Year in and year out, we were always within 100 to 150 grand of the number based on using that 0.7 factor. So if you've been in business a while, go back and look at what you thought you were going to do in sales, and then look what you really did. And I've done this with a lot of my clients. The lowest I've ever seen is a 0.62. The highest I've ever seen is a 0.85. So you've got a number in there that can help you create a forecast and a budget, so you're not having to cut budgets or change hiring plans, et cetera, during the year because you're forecasting too high. Letting go. So you've got to be willing to let go. I'm going to back to this again. Commitments are key. And, partners are a challenge. What I'm saying there is, if you have a partner in your business, you're obviously not identical. So there may be some timelines that they have a little different than you from a standpoint of transitioning out of the business. But you need to be as close to alignment as you can be on those timelines. So for Karen and I, we'd set up a 12-month window. As I talk about in the book, we all know what happened on 9/11 of 2001. That kind of kicked us in the you-know-where on that one. And so we had to move our timeline back. We moved it back about 6 months and transitioned out in 18 months versus 12. Tracking metrics. So I'm a metric fanatic. I love metrics. I was a finance major in college, but I'm not a huge, lover of looking over P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow statements. So my metrics, my dashboard of my key indicators was how I make sure the business is running at the best. So I talk about this in the book. Kind of like a great recipe. What gets measured gets done. And you can really run your business off of your metrics. So for some of you, you may not want to share all your financials with your employees. That's fine. Just share with them the metrics. So you had 5 key metrics that I developed over about 2 years. It took me some time to really nail these. That can show me at any time how 95% of my business is running. I think it's almost impossible to get an overall feel of 100% of your business. But if you looking at 5 key metrics can take the pulse of 95% of your company, you can live with 40-hour work here without a problem. And then owner wealth and company value. So the question I would ask myself, especially as we started to grow rather rapidly, is am I building a business or an asset? What I mean by this is, and most people out there have businesses. Businesses are going to be valued strictly on the value of the client list or the revenue stream that you have in your business. Okay, that's a business valuation. An asset valuation includes things like intellectual capital, brand, systems, people. That's a true asset because a true asset grows whether you're there or not, and that's what you want to be building. And then on this one as well, if you're more of an emotionally based person and you find your heart getting in the way of the decisions your head should be making, use the filters, use the tools I'm showing you in this presentation, and then you're making less emotional based decisions. You're making more business and logical based decisions. So here we are. 2004, 2007. I was now letting others do it, getting out of their way. I now had what I'd consider an enterprise business, which I believe is less than 5% of all the companies in the United States, because I was building an asset. I was now enjoying life, making money, doing deals in that order, not the other orders like earlier in my business career. And the one word to be visionary. So I was still leading people, but my team really was leading everybody. I was now out there looking at new things, new ways we could expand the business, new strategic endeavors we could go after. And obviously, ultimately, during this time, we sold in December 2007. I was also being visionary about how to exit the company. And I was living the 40-hour work year. I'm going to go over what that was, how I got to that number. Basically, it was 18 hours a year inspecting what I expect. So an hour and a half every month. By the way, we had 23 entities spread over 42 states, so that was a rather large endeavor. But the last Tuesday of every month, we get on a call. We have the CFO, the CEO, myself, and Karen, and we review the key metrics in the business. All right? This took about an hour and a half. We talk about the key metrics in the business. How are we looking on our goals, our top 5 for the year? How are any of the people issues we had going on, which didn't take that long because my team was managing all that. And then my favorite part of the call, which was always at the end, was what was my distribution out of the 23 entities. And that took about an hour and a half. And then every year, from the day we started the company until the final year, we had a 2-day strategic retreat. So this is about 16 hours, day and a half, day and a quarter of heavy lifting. So creating our top 5, creating our forecast and budget, and then 3/4 or half of the day doing something fun, whitewater rafting, play golf, etc. So some team building. This was the 5 executive team members, Seth, and then Karen and myself for the last 4 years. So there were 8 of us at this event every year. And then the one day a year I flew back to the office in Michigan. I think I mentioned I live in Las Vegas now in Nevada. I've been here for 12 years. I'd fly back mid-year, usually June or July when the weather was nice, and we do a mid-year checkup. I meet the new 10 to 15 employees that have been hired, and we do a checkup on the top 5 and any other issues going on in the company, and then I'd fly back home. So finally here as I wrap up, I think we're pretty much right at 45 minutes, looks like, 44 minutes here. Begin with the end in mind. All right, so the big takeaway should be this. Think about where you want to go. Think about where you want to be in your life and your business, and start taking the steps to get there. And so the first question I ask everybody is, would you buy your own company? If you can't say yes to this right now, you've got to get to yes here, because if you want to buy your own company, good luck selling it to anybody else. So you want to get to yes on this one. And of course, the first question is, what would you pay? All right, so that's great, you buy your own company, but if the number's not anywhere near a decent number, you probably have some work to do, which leads you to the next question. What's your number to exit? So from an exercise standpoint, I usually do this in the seminars. If I take somebody from the audience and they buy their own company, what would you pay? And they say, oh, I'd pay $1 million. Okay, that's cool. What's your number to exit? And they say $5 million. Well, there's our starting point, right? So you need to close that $4 million gap. But more importantly, and I say this all the time, it's not the price, it's the terms. What are the terms? So if your terms to sell and your terms to exit are is all cash, you probably got some work to do, because most deals aren't going to be all cash. And the way to get to that all cash deal, which is what I got when I sold, is to get yourself out of the company. Create the systems, hire the key people, and get yourself out of the company. That is a business, what I would consider an ATM machine. That is a business somebody will pay all cash for. And then finally, I'll leave you with this. Do you love what you do? Because ultimately, if you love what you do, everything I've talked about in the last 45 minutes can happen. But you need to sit down and define this. You need to define very specifically what you love doing. Do more of that. Do less of what you don't love to do, and you too can live the 40-hour work year guarantees. And that's it, Michael.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. We do have some questions. Hold on just a second. Let me grab this one. We had a question. What are the 5 key metrics?
Oh, my 5 key metrics. Yeah, I didn't go through those. On this presentation just from a time standpoint. But I could pull those up if I have another presentation. So we had the key thing that we wanted to look at were the 10 areas of your business that you want to measure and create 5 key metrics that will measure those. All right, so the tracking metrics in these 10 key areas, and they're always year over year, that's YOY, quarter over quarter, and month over month. So profit, target markets, growth, service, SOPs, culture, retention, cross-selling, productivity, and technology. So as we looked at our company and we're building out these metrics, I wanted to have a pulse on these 10 areas. Okay, and honestly, the P&L and the balance sheet, cash flow statement, it'll touch on these, but they're not really the key metrics of how you're doing in these areas. So here's one, for example. Here's one of the 5. So to cover profit and target markets, we would look at total monthly gross margin dollars divided by total number of worksite employees. So without going into too much detail of how my business operated, worksite employees were my clients' employees. So when we sold the company, we had about 6,000 worksite employees. So those were, and they were made up of about 320 clients. So those are the employees of the clients we serviced with our HR payroll systems. Growth target markets, total weekly and monthly gross payroll divided by total number of clients. So again, what I use to measure my metrics won't necessarily fit for everybody on the call. You've got to sit down and figure out what things would you measure in your business to get these results that you want to know about from the standpoint of target markets, growth, profit. Service, SOPs, and culture. So this gets into what you do, Michael. This gets into making sure your SOPs are in place. In our case, it was payroll errors. So we would track our total weekly, monthly payroll errors divided by our total number of clients. This told us how good of a service offering, how was our service offering holding up to what we promised, how strong were our SOPs, and did we have a culture of performance that is what we drove our culture on, so that the people that were doing this work were following our culture and our mindset. Retention and cross-selling. So we sold insurance products, benefit products. So what was our total monthly worksite employee benefit dollars divided by our total number of worksite employees? So we knew that if we could get the payroll people to cross-sell our benefit services and offerings, not only would we retain the clients, golden handcuffs longer, we would also be cross-selling effectively the services and products from our company. And then the final one, which covered productivity, culture, and technology, for total monthly internal payroll dollars. So this is my true labor burden of my company divided by total monthly client payroll dollars. So this was the total dollars that we were billing the client on payroll divided into our internal payroll. Is that good?
Great. Thank you, Scott. We have another question. Jamie is asking, he went to www.40hourworkyear.com and it did not go to a site, just ad links. Do you want them to go to Growth Connect?
Yeah, it should be working, but if it doesn't, if you go to growthconnect.com, so growthconnect.com, that's another site. I'll have to go see what my web guys have done to me.
Okay. Yes, he said he found you on growthconnect.com. Are there any other questions? Scott, do you want to offer your coaching offer?
Sure. So anybody on the call, if you'd like to email me directly, I don't have a big operation. You work with me one-on-one. I'm willing to offer 20% off, which is the same offer I give to my Entrepreneurs Organization and YPO clients. 20% off any of my coaching services. Those are daily services or hourly services. So just shoot me an email. I'll get back to you. My email is Scott, S-C-O-T-T, at growthconnect, growthconnect.com. And shoot me an email. I'll shoot you out my one-page coaching program. And if it's something you're interested in, I will offer up the 20% discount based on Michael's graciousness of having me on his program.
Thank you, Scott, for joining us today and for your presentation. It was great. If you would like to see a demo of the application that Scott was referencing, the Touchstone Business System for developing and implementing and managing your standard operating procedures, text systems, S-Y-S-T-E-M-S. If you have a cell phone, you can text systems to the number 707-800-3603, and that will begin a procedure where we will follow up with you and schedule a demo of Touchstone. And because you're with us today on Scott's presentation, we also offer a free month of the application so that you can take it for a test drive. If you have other questions, feel free to email me. You should see on your screen right now that my email address is mmills, M-M-I-L-L-S, @businessdesigncorp.com. You can also visit us on our website at businessdesigncorp.com. We have a ton of free tools, free information, valuable business development exercises and information that you can use to help scale your business. And if you'd like to take advantage of Scott's offer again, get that discount in his coaching and consulting programs, his email, you should be seeing that here too, scott@growthconnect.com. So thank you again, Scott, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And here's to getting the business that you deserve and actually achieving the 40-hour work year. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Bye-bye now.